Hello, YouTube. We are back for the attack for the Justice League of America, or Brave and the Bold, number 28, the first appearance of the Justice League. And as you saw last upload in relation to this book, I sort of washed the cover after the tape removal through the use of paper towels, Rimet, and Polytext, and capillary suction. And it's in Big Bertha right now, the cover. So I want to really get rolling with this because I want to get it off to CGC. So what are we going to do? We're not going to go too crazy with the interior, but I want to clean the pages. I want to remove the tape. I'm not going to do any type of aqueous bath in relation to the interior, but we just want to clean it up, smooth it out, get the folds in the right directions, and remove the tape and any sticky residue. So what I like to use when I clean the interior of the books is Absorbine, and I get a little bowl like this, and as you can see, there's black. Whether this is ink or something else, I don't know, but when I clean the interior of the book, I see a lot of times people using the Absorbine, and they like to roll it. There's only one thing that I like to roll when I was young, if everyone knows what I'm talking about. See right there, I just ripped it. And that's a mistake because I'm being funny and I'm kidding. There was a rip there, but we extended it a little too much pressure, and that's why people do roll. But I have to admit, I did make a mistake, but that's okay, because when you are working on books like this, believe me, if a rip is there, you have to be careful, and you have to be careful with the edges. And I always say this to myself, but sometimes when you're working on the books and you're recording and you're trying to do 5 things at once, and you're being funny, or trying to be funny, just like I did, mistakes happen. So when I clean books, especially the interior, especially at the edges, you want to go towards the edge. You want to go away from the book. I just didn't follow my rule, and I ripped or made an existing rip worse than it was. So that's a lesson, and you have to understand that lessons are learned from everyone. And I just made a simple mistake that is a good learning example where you have to pay attention when you work on these old books. But it happened, and we're not going to cry over spilt milk. We're just going to continue, and we're going to forge ahead, and we are going to continue cleaning the book by gently rubbing the Absorbine in a pattern over the whole page. And I will do this with each page to make it look hopefully a little cleaner and a little better. And this will be the process that I will do for each page. So we're going to keep on going. We're going to keep on going over like when you eat corn in a row. So we make sure we get all of the little particles and dirt that may be on the book. Now look at the piece of the Absorbine. It's nice and black. I'm sure some of that is some of the inks lifting, but I do think also it is dirt that has developed on this book because it's not in the best condition, obviously, just by looking at it. So again, I'm going to stay away from this edge because there are a lot of rips there. And whether that rip that just occurred was a new rip or a continuation of a rip that was existing, I honestly think it was a continuation of a rip that was existing. So we're going to keep on going. going away from the book, going away from the edges, and this piece is shot. And I'm going to throw it out, and I'm going to grab another piece. And I like to use small little balls when I use this stuff. And I like to heat it up, make a little circle or a little ball, and then we'll continue going over the book, and we'll try to get each and every aspect or each and every surface area of this Silver Age gem of the first appearance of the Justice League. So right there, that's pretty good in my opinion. Now what I want to do is I want to try to remove the tape. And I'll go over the book once again off camera. I'm just showing you an example of how I do it. We'll go over it so I can get nice and close. The next thing I want to do is I want to remove the tape. I'm not going to use chemicals. I'm not going to use a freezer like I did with the cover. We're going to use the good old tack iron. And hopefully I'll be able to get it up. Now, this is a piece of parchment paper. Sometimes I use parchment paper. Sometimes I go a little crazy, and guess what? I put it right on the piece of tape without parchment paper. And let's see whether heating it up, if it's going to work, if it's going to achieve the goal of loosening the adhesive. So now what I want to do is I want to try to get underneath the tape. I'll use my razor blade, just like that, and look how it popped up. So we got a good situation with the adhesive definitely loosening. So let's get under there and let's see if we can do some rocking and rolling. And it is loosening up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can heat it up again on the top piece, just like this, using the tack iron, because you want to try to remove the tape all in one shot on the newsprint. So let's see if that worked. And there you go. And I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but hopefully it is. And there we go. I have it lifted. So once I have it lifted, I will put my painter's tool. This is a painter's tool that painters use, oil painters, for applying oil paints. And I got this at Blick Art Supply. And I always try to use or find different tools that I can apply to the comic conservation. So look how nice this tape is coming off. And here we go. Let's see if we can flip it over. And we remove the piece of tape off of the first wrap of the book. Let's go right to the second piece. And then you may be asking, okay, you got that off, but what about the residue? I can feel it. It's still tacky. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to use a little Absorine. And then also what I've used in the past is some methyl cellulose. And if you put methyl cellulose on the adhesive that's underneath the carrier of the tape, sometimes what happens is the methyl cellulose will bind to the adhesive, and you can just roll it on with your finger and it will pull it up. And I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second, but I just want to try to work and get this piece off. And then, just so everyone knows, this cover, take that back, this interior has probably tape on every other page, every page or so. So I'm not going to sit here and do an upload showing you me removing the tape, but rather what I'll do is I'll switch it over to time lapse. And I haven't done one of them in a while, and the good old time lapse is something that I enjoy doing. Now, right off of the get-go, I can tell you that this tape is not coming up as easy as the first piece of tape. And I think that what happened was the adhesive in this tape actually, and you can see it now, it's flaking off. The adhesive and the tape just is so old that it basically fused with the paper, with the paper fibers. And that's what happened with the cover. It just crystallized and it fused, and that's why the freezing method worked so well, because I was able to just chip it off like that. I really do not feel any adhesive on this piece of tape, but we're gonna try. Maybe we'll heat it up again, maybe we'll get luckier, and let's see if we can flake off the pieces that are on there, and that would be awesome. So there we go, there we go, there we go. Okay, so right there, it looks like I removed all the tape, although in little pieces. So what I want to do now is let's see if we can take care of the adhesive that's still here. It's still tacky. So sometimes what I like to do is I like to take the Absorine and I like to rub the Absorine on to the sticky portion or the adhesive portion of the tape that is still on the actual page itself. And sometimes just by doing it like this, you will be able to use the friction of the Absorine to pull off the adhesive, because you have to understand that the Absorine is sticky and things will penetrate and form into the actual putty itself, and hopefully I'll be able to remove it just by using friction. Then, like right now, it is less tacky. And with the same token, sometimes what I like to do is I like to use my eraser, because the white eraser also at times will be able to remove the tackiness without having to use any form of chemicals such as Bestine that I like to use, or other chemicals that I've used in the past to remove the adhesive. We can do it mechanically if we're lucky. And I think maybe at this point we are getting lucky, because I don't really feel a lot of the adhesive. But just to show you, this is methyl cellulose. This is what I use to make my gel for the glue. Another trick that I use to remove adhesive is I take some methyl cellulose and I put it on my bone, and there we go. And we don't do that. I'm doing a lot of drug funny entertainment today, but it's not funny. Stay away from drugs. So what we do is we put the methyl cellulose raw on the adhesive and we let it sit. And then what I do is I will grab a brush, a paintbrush. We can use this paintbrush. We have it right here. And I like to slowly rub the methyl cellulose into where the adhesive is. And then what happens is the methyl cellulose will pick up the adhesive, and then hopefully we'll be able to lift it off of the paper and we will get rid of the stickiness. Because if you're going to be doing the work on the book like this, you really don't want to keep the stickiness on it, because number one, the cover will stick on, or the page that's in front of it will stick on, and that's not a good thing. Second, we're trying to preserve the books, even though this is going to be a 0.50 CGC. We don't want to submit a book that still has tackiness in it, that still has adhesive from the glue. We want to try to clean it up as best as possible. So right there, I'm using the absorbing piece, and I'm going over the adhesive that is on the book, on the front page, and hopefully by doing that, I was able to remove it. And right there, I think I'm in pretty good shape. I think we actually removed the tackiness. So that was an A for good efforts. It worked. So let's open the page and let's move on and let's see the second page. So we do have a book that is connected, and I see right here, here is a piece of the third page of the book right here, and it looks like it was taped on. So unfortunately, in order to get the regular universal grade, this has to stay out, because if this stayed in and I had this reinserted or reattached with tape, they most likely, meaning they, CGC, would designate this book as a restored grade, because even though you're allowed to use tape to mend rips and things of that nature, my understanding is that you are not allowed to put pieces back, because I do have a restored book, which is a Wiz Comics, and I reattached one little corner using archival tape quite some time ago. And then once I got it back, I was like, what the F, man? It's a purple label. And after my due diligence, I researched and I found out that the actual grading criteria for a universal grade is you can't reattach pieces. Once you reattach pieces, then it switches the book over to a purple label or a restored grade, because that is adding. You're adding something to the book, even though originally it was in the book. CGC looks at it as restoration, and we don't want to do that, because if I'm going to be doing this work trying to make the book look better, I don't want to waste the time, and I don't want to submit a book and then I get a purple label, because if that's the case, I might as well just do a conserved effort and get a higher parent grade. So right now I'm lucky, because this piece appears to be coming up quite easily. So I just whacked it with a little more heat. We're going to put my tool in, and I'm going to try to rub the tool gently through so we can remove this piece of tape. So I'll tell you right now, this edge of the book is so fragile, and it may even be where I may lose some of the graphics, but that's okay. We know it's a low grade book, and we know that by doing this, you run the risk of losing pieces of the book, graphics. It's a cost-benefit analysis, guys. If I wanted to keep everything the way it was, I could have just submitted the book as is with all of the tape and all of the gookity-gook that's on the pages. Now, gookity-gook is a very precise term that is in all of the scientific literature in relation to conservation. Gookity-gook. So look it up, and very scientific here at Jerry the Jitterbugs channel. We like to use scientific terms, and gookity-gook is one of those scientific terms that people should know about. So right here, we're doing well. Hopefully the camera is picking it up. It is nicely being removed, this piece of tape. And I will do this, like I said, because how long am I going to video this and people are watching and, geez, he talks a lot. But listen, this is the way that my channel is. I bring you on the journey. I show you how I do things. whether I am successful, whether I am not successful. It really depends. It depends on how things go. And you have to understand that I've worked on books before, okay, guys, where those books are easy peasy to work on. And what happens is when I work on those books, sometimes books really turn out very well. Sometimes books turn out okay. It really depends on the bones of the book. It really depends on the foundation that you're working with. Sometimes tape comes off so easily without effort, and you say to yourself, wow, that's amazing. That tape just came off. I'm very happy with the way that came off. There's no paper loss, there's nothing. And it does happen sometimes. Other times, tape is a bitch, and you will not get the tape off as you would have hoped you could have. Like, look at this nice piece that came off. Sometimes it just turns out horrible, and it doesn't really work as well as you would want it to work, but that's the nature of the game. Like right here, what I'm doing now, I'm very radical right now. I'm pulling it off. I'm getting a little crazy, and I should slow it down because I'm getting impatient. And I think what I'm going to do is, after this piece is up and I remove it, I'm going to walk away, because you have to walk away, guys, when you feel impatient, because what happens is then you start to rush, and then when you rush, bad things happen. And we want to try to do our best with these books. That's why we're doing it. We don't want to rush and make more problems and ruin the way the book looks. So we got one more piece here. So we're going to try to remove that piece. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to then put some methyl cellulose, because this whole side of the page, of the second page, or the first page, the back of the first page, it is very tacky. There is a lot of residue I can feel. So we're going to line it up. We're going to line it up with some white powder in the form of methyl cellulose, and then hopefully all of the gooky stuff will come up, and we will be able to have at least the first wrap done, and that is it. So I'm going to cut this upload right now, and look at all the glue, all the residue that's on the tool right now. So I'm going to cut this short because I need to get close, and then what you're going to see is from this point forward, when I stop, it's going to be all time lapse, and then we'll see how it turns out very shortly. But stay tuned, and thank you for stopping by.